This is me, Isaac Castro. But before we jump into my story, we gotta go back to my roots, my family roots. On my mom's side, my family came from Portugal, Azore Islands, settled down in California, and started a family farm. Here are my two Portuguese great-grandmothers, Avó Costa and Avó Borges. This is my grandpa, Manuel Borges. I call him Va. He married my grandma, Mary Borges. I call her Va. I was sort of like the son he never had, and his namesake. My middle name's Manuel. But he did have two girls, my mom and my Aunt Vicky. On my dad's side, my great-grandfather Jess immigrated from Mexico in the early 20th century. He married my great-grandmother Mary, and soon had a bunch of kids, including my Nana, Ann Mendez. Those kids led to even more grandkids, and many good times and traditions. They were our rock, my great-grandma and grandpa. That leads us to my Nana. She was a hairdresser and had two kids, my dad and my Aunt April. My Aunt April was the first woman in our family to go to college. One winter break from Berkeley, my dad met my mom, and they fell in love. 2 years later, I came into the picture. I was quite the surprise. But my birth wasn't the only thing that happened to California in the late 80s. The A's made the World Series only to have it interrupted by a huge earthquake. The Bay Area was rocked. I also spent my first Christmas in the hospital, where I nearly died from a pretty serious bout of salmonella, but I bounced back to have some really fun early years with my parents. I watched my dad graduate with a master's in public policy, and I also helped him out on the Clinton Gore campaign in 1992. He was my biggest hero. I also had a really special bond with my mom. After a few years, my parents got married in Yosemite, and I got to be in the wedding. A year later, one of my best friends in the world was born, my sister Lauren. What you may not know about me is that I moved 12 times before I went to college. Nevertheless, I had an awesome childhood, and I was the ultimate 90s kid. I had awesome godparents, especially my Nino Fred. I met my estranged Grandpa Joe, and I spent some great times with my cousins on both sides of my family. Then things got intense. My dad got his PhD from Stanford. I broke both my arms in a crazy accident, and I started spending my summers at Berkeley at the age of 12. My summers at Berkeley were very foundational and were a huge motivation to focus academically during the school year. High school was awesome. I got my first car, I got my first job, and I scored high enough grades to go to my dream school, UC Berkeley. Leaving behind the comforts of the Castro family was tough, but at the ripe age of 17, I couldn't wait to go to college. I got tatted, I started a band, got involved with HU, and joined a fraternity. But the best thing to happen in college was undoubtedly meeting my future wife, Marilyn Monroe. We hit it off quickly and never looked back. She was my ultimate partner in crime. We were inseparable. We grew up together, and by the fates of history, we were radicalized together.
Product economy now. University of California students could face much bigger fees next year. A plan is on the table that calls for more than 30% hike in student fees over the next year and a half, pushing in-state undergraduate fees to more than $10,000.
After 5 years of fee increases, Marilyn and I said enough is enough, and we founded the Latino Sociology Association, a hard-left political affinity group. That ragtag group of young, passionate Latino sociology students served as a key cog in many of the political movements at UC Berkeley during those years. Graduating from UC Berkeley was a proud moment for me and my family, but it was tough to leave the place that I had truly grown up. After graduation, Marilyn and I headed to Arizona to serve in the AmeriCorps. After finishing up my AmeriCorps service, I came back to the Bay to spend more time with family and ended up kicking off some of the best years of my 20s. I ran an after-school program. I became a die-hard A's season ticket holder. I built a man cave. I co-founded a co-ed softball team through the city of Berkeley with Marilyn. And I watched both of my dogs, Aesop and Gilly, grow up. I also gained quite a reputation for my cooking skills. And my parents had a third child, Jess, my little brother. But even though my work in education was fulfilling, I was still feeling the effects of the Great Recession, with no end in sight. I jumped into the Occupy movement head first. This period led to 2 false imprisonments and a whole lot of litigation for crimes I never committed. But this picture exonerated me from one of them. It was at this time that 2 things changed my life. First was my dad being named president of Fresno State. Secondly, I was hired by the Goldman School of Public Policy to run the prestigious Public Policy and International Affairs Junior Summer Institute. In this role, I had the privilege of working with the top student leaders from across the country. All the while, I was living a wonderful life with Marilyn. And after 9 years, I finally popped the question. She said yes. And in the summer of 2016, we packed everything up, said goodbye to the Bay, and moved to Fresno to attend the HEAL program. HEAL has been great, and watching my dad in his presidency has been awesome. But the best part about being in Fresno is the chance to spend really important time with my family. After over 10 years away, I've appreciated these moments. Last summer, I married the love of my life, Marilyn, and after 10 years of dating and almost 2 years of planning, we had the best wedding ever. Since then, I've spent the last few months learning from mentors and making moves with eyes towards the doctorate and a career in higher education. I'm not sure where I'll be next year or 20 years from now. All I know is the best is yet to come.
I'll be fine once I get it. I'll be good.